My room is a mess, but it's okay. We're getting there.
That's perpetually my life.
Yeah, that's
Anyway.
fine.
Hello and welcome to Fall Through, your source for deep conversations about technology, software, and computing. I'm your host, Kris Brando, also known as Scriptable, and today it's another duo episode of Matt and me, and we're going to talk about some random tech news. Wow, not tech. We're going to talk about some random tech news, things going on. There's a lot of AI stuff. I feel like all of tech is AI right now, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the Google I/O stuff related to AI, Cerebras, some big tech stuff, and our general musings about the current state of AI and probably some vulnerabilities too, because GitHub just had a compromise. Railway is down for some reason. There's a lot of stuff going on. As per usual, we will have a whole bunch of supporter content. If you're not a supporter, you should become one by going to fallthrough.fm/subscribe and signing up today. And if you're not following us on socials, please give us a follow there. And if you're on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And with that, let's get into the show. Hello, viewer / listener. How are you doing today? It is warm, bright, and sunny in New York. It's a gorgeous day. And we're here to talk about the ever gorgeous topic of what is going on with AI in tech right now, because that feels like all anybody's ever talking about. But there's so much to talk. I feel like AI has just completely consumed tech. I don't know if there is any non-AI tech news. Even like I think we're probably going to get to the Bun Zig to Rust port, and even that is related to AI. So
Yeah, I think tech is like, consolidating into this AI assisted whatever it's going to be.
yeah.
I read something on social media yesterday about like how, finance bros used to be the ones people hate, and now it's the tech people just because of AI. And there's some truth there, but yeah, there's so much to talk about in this area because it's always changing. But like I also, It's funny, like I don't always want to talk about it, but then there's always new things happening in it that makes it nice, like a nice topic to talk about.
Yeah, it's so hard because I think the other stuff that's not AI news is like it still touches AI in some way.
Yeah.
And obviously there's big headline things going. There's always like things in your face. Like I was on Twitter the other day. I was on something and I saw that the OpenClaw guy who now he either works for OpenAI or OpenAI is sponsoring OpenClaw, but like he spent like 600 billion tokens last month, and it cost like $1.3 million. And he's like, look, I'm shipping. And I'm like, that is absurd. Like, I was like, are those numbers fake? It's like, nope, those numbers are real. He's like, it would have been fine if I wasn't using fast mode. And I'm just like, that is an unconscionable amount of money. Like, what are we doing?
It's kind of wild because I'm sure that what is it? Peter Stein something, right? Peter
Steinberg, yeah.
I'm sure he's getting paid a fat salary from OpenAI or whatever. However, whatever the relationship is, if he's an employee, whatever that is, I'm sure he's getting paid very handsomely. But yeah, $1.3 million of token spend in 30 days is like insanity.
It's a lot.
And sure, because I read some of the thread there, and one of the replies was, if I switch to fast mode, this will go down by 70%, and that will be roughly the cost of like a full-time engineer per month per year, whatever, however, whichever way the math works out either way. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You're right. Like, what Oxide pays us $250K a year. It is all public, so I don't even care. They pay us $250K. Break that down per month, you're roughly at like $20K-ish per month, right? Gross.
Yeah.
So, okay, if you spend $20K in tokens, you are effectively a single full-time employee.
But also 30% of 1.3 million is not 20K. It's like 400K.
Right.
Like,
I mean, there's also that problem where you have people that they only know how to speak in San Francisco numbers. Right, so it's cheap. It's $500,000, dude. What do you mean it's cheap? Like, get out of here with that crap.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm like, this is an entire team of engineers per month that you're spending, which it's just On so many levels, I'm just like confused about, and like, what are we actually building? Like, I understand that people like we've really just translated lines of code into tokens, like in and out tokens, like millions of tokens, right? So it's like, look how many tokens I've spent is the same, like, look how many lines of code I've wrote. And I'm like, there's a reason why software was like hard to write before. And it's that there was a lot of friction in the process, and it was a thing where you couldn't move like too fast. There were lots of checks, and I think people are just kind of throwing a lot of stuff at AI, and it's like building a lot of stuff. But it's also so easy to burn so many tokens. I guess the one thing about this too is like I've been like churning on some smaller projects, and I do spend like a couple million tokens, like 100 million tokens, right, on a small thing that takes me like an afternoon to build, right? It's like $100 if I was doing API and subscription, so it's not that much, and it's like 100 million tokens, and that yields me maybe like 5,000 lines of code. So like the tokens to code ratio is very different, but it's still just like so many tokens that you're spending and so many parallel agents. And then you have to like review the output of those things. Well, you probably should review the output of those things. And I think that's where we're starting to see people probably not doing as much review as they should. And at the same time, we're seeing all of these vulnerabilities and security problems that are happening, and I'm like, these two things are probably a bit more than correlated.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to the changelog episode with Adam Jacob. So Adam Stacoviak and Adam Jacob, right? The Adam duo. And Adam's stance with like Swamp was you're building a machine that builds your machine, right? Like, so your focus is on building sort of, I don't want to say harness because that's incorrect, but essentially that's what it is, right? You build this sort of harness thing that knows how to build your actual machine that is like your business thing, right? Like whatever makes your business money. And I get where he's going with that. And his stance is like, you can't, the velocity that you're operating at, you can't do human review anymore. So you have to like augment that with AI review and guardrails and tests and like UAT, right? Like user acceptance testing, all this stuff. And I get that, but also I feel like there has to be a level of understanding somewhere. Someone has to understand the architecture or system somewhere. And it can't just be like a document that's written down that like you just constantly feed to AI. Like someone has to fundamentally think through how this is going to work at a high level.
Right. Yeah, I think the problem is that like we're all shifting to people that are now designers in a way we couldn't be before. Like I made some Blue Sky post about this recently where I was just like, yeah, like before my problem was always like I could design something, like I can go design a big system or a thing to solve a problem, but like my domain knowledge is not strong enough to actually build it. So like for instance, there was a tool I built with Claude Code for the podcast, which converts the wave master files that I shove out of Final Cut Pro into the MP3s that we actually ship. And as part of that, I wanted to embed chapter art. And like, I didn't have a good understanding of how the EXIF data works for the metadata. I think it's EXIF data, and how the MP3 structure works. Like, I didn't get any of that. So if I wanted to build that tool myself, usually you would have just stuck with the manual workflow I was doing before, which is eating up lots of my time, because like learning how all of that worked would have taken a bunch of time, and then finding libraries and then integrating it would have taken up like hours and hours and hours and hours of my time. So I wouldn't really have been able to build that tool. But like I knew what it was that I needed to do. So I was like, hey, Claude, go build this thing that does what I need it to do. And Claude built that thing for me in like half an hour. And then I had this tool that I can now use to go do something. And that's fine. And like, I haven't really looked at that code because it doesn't really matter what that code looks like, because it's not like a tool I'm providing to other people.
Yeah, it's almost like a pure function in a way. Like
that
it's
code, like, oh, I need WAV files to go in, WAV files and like PNGs or JPEGs to go in, and like MP3 with those things embedded to come out. It's very easy to test. I can open up in Finder and see that all of the images are there. Great, fine, we're good. So it's like, oh, I needed a tool to do that. I don't need to look at the code for that. That's fine. But I still like did all the design work. Like I was like, this is what it needs to do. These are the requirements it needs to meet. And I did that recently too with a tool I'm using to finally clean up all of my photos. Like I have terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of photos because I did this like multi-year long time lapsing, and I like had photos all over the place. I'm like, I need to reconcile all of these. So I came up with a design that uses like a content addressable store and uses hard links to put them in a nice place for Lightroom. Like I was like, okay, let's map out all the stuff that I want to do. Worked with Claude on the design, and then it was like, go build the thing. And then when I ran into problems, I was like, oh, here's a problem. I think that this is how the code works. Correct me if it's not. Go fix this thing. I mean, I could have looked at the code and confirmed it, but it's easier to like ask Claude, and Claude will tell me if the code works that way or not. And then I can confirm it by like observing how the tool's running and seeing if the files go into places they should be and all of this. And it's like, yeah, I don't need to review and look at the code, but I still need to have a very good understanding of the design, which is really like that historically has been the role of often senior software engineers, but also like staff plus engineers and especially principal engineers, right? Like they've never really needed to know how all of the little pieces work when you're doing cross-team development, especially. You just need to know the rough ways that the systems work enough so that you can do like the cross-team collaboration integration that's needed. So it's like we're really just kind of pushing everybody up away from that code that used to be away from doing that work that used to be like the junior and intermediate level work of like, here's your constraint problem, please go implement it. Now we can replace that somewhat with Claude Code. And now you are more like a staff engineer in what you can do and what you are doing, which is, I think, a good shift for our industry. But I think it is like, the reason why staff engineers are good is because they can conceptualize how the code works, because they have an understanding of the domain and the language they're working in and all of that. If you don't have any of that, then you're not going to be very good at this. But I also think that it's very different to say, oh, I'm going to work on all of these designs and I'm going to be the primary like instigator of the designs, and like Claude is just going to go and like do a lot of that work, right? I'm just going to leave it like, I guess my thing here is that the people that are using things in this way, are they really sitting down and writing very detailed docs or specs or designs, whatever you want to call them, and driving that, and that's why they're getting so much parallelism, because that's like what Steve does? Or are they just kind of throwing things at it and having Claude figure out a lot of the high level details that they should be figuring out? So I think that's what makes the difference.
Yeah, I think it's the latter for most people. Most people are just kind of throwing things out there and seeing what sticks. But like, for me, it comes back to, what does it even mean to build or to create or to write something anymore? Because if you just tell the AI agent, write a spec, like you didn't write that spec, and you barely informed it either. You just kind of like yeeted it out into existence. But if you like sat down and like iterated on the spec and wrote it, and you like have a nice design for that, then yeah, now you've written that and you've kind of guided the system. And I don't know that so many people are doing it that way. And I don't mean you have to perfectly handwrite it either. Like you can totally use AI to like help generate it and go from there. But I read some of these, like I've been having Claude do like deep research on like some of the projects that are out there, like some of the popular projects that are coming out, like Herder and like CMux and things that you hear about on X or whatever. And in the directories of the source code, you see things like spec.md and whatever, or protocol.md, and it's not human written at all, right? Like it's just generated by some LLM, probably prompted by a human. So like, did you write a protocol? Like I don't know where to like draw that line anymore. But I think this whole move towards, everybody's like an architect now. I get why that is, right? Because you do have to architect the system and kind of bridge the high level parts together. But like the security problems happen on like the lower end, right? On like the zoomed in part of software where like, functions and files and that low level area that we're kind of moving away from. That's where like the security issues lie, right? Security issues don't necessarily lie in the overall architecture, right? It's not like I'm gonna, break into your app because your architecture is wrong. I'm gonna break into your app because your function's incorrect, and like
right,
the input was not validated correctly. So this, I guess what I'm trying to say here is this move away from like the low level software, and I don't mean low level as in like kernel or whatever or hardware. I mean just like the day to day. I'm looking at functions and writing functions and blah blah blah. The move from that up to architecture also has some level of security implications, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot like when we moved from writing assembly to writing high level languages. But I think the big problem here is like the same problem I think we've had at like a societal level for a while, is that the missing epistemic markers in our just in how we talk is convincing us of things that we should be more skeptical of. Right? When people say, "Oh, it'll just be better in 6 months," I'm like, "No, you need a qualifier there. What chance? What percentage chance do you believe that it'll be better in 6 months?" Because if it's 100% chance that you think it'll be able to do this specific thing better in 6 months, I'm just going to say you're wrong. I'm going to call BS on you, right? Got to give me something lower than that. What is it? Are you 80% sure? Are you 60% sure? Are you 40% sure? Like, you need to qualify how sure you are that the AI system we have are going to be better in 6 months, because then you can calibrate. Because then in 6 months will happen, and we can look back and we can say, is it doing the thing you said it was going to be doing? Right? This is the thing that like everybody's like, well, Dario says. I'm like, Dario's been saying that AI is going to replace us in 6 months for 4 years. Like, and it's not, right? So we need the qualifier. How sure is he? How sure are any of us that it's going to replace this or do this thing or whatever? Because once we have those calibrating markers, then we can start having an actual discussion of like, what is this thing really going to be able to do? And it'll be able to help other people calibrate what they do. And we can stop having people just freak out all the time.
Yeah. And like qualify it also with something you believe, right? Like, or some data. And it doesn't even have to just be like, oh, I'm 80% sure. I believe LLMs are going to be better in 6 months because this data that I read shows this, right? Like, and point to some resource or give some qualification statement to help me like follow up on that. But this whole blanket statement without qualifiers is really frustrating. And that's sort of the message on social media today, is like, this stuff is, you're going to get left behind if you don't learn this stuff, and it's getting so much better every single day, blah blah blah. Look, new terminal multiplexer, new agent thing, you know, Pi, Hermes or Hermes, I don't know which one, how they pronounce it. And, you know, OpenClaw, whatever, like, and you just feel so overwhelmed to try to keep up with these tools, when really like none of the tools actually matter. It's just the fact that you should be using some tool that's more important, and like just dipping your toe in, that's more important. But that's not what they're saying. You know, these people out there on social media aren't saying like, hey, you know, try some AI, here's what I recommend, but like there's these alternatives. They're saying, they're speaking in absolutes. Pi is the best, you know, OpenClaw is the best, CMux with this is the way. If you're not doing exactly what I'm doing, you're wrong. That's the message. And that is so draining, and it doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, I think the big problem is that people don't understand that by its very nature, kind of like built into the way it works, is that AI, like LLMs, which are the core of all of these systems, are always going to give you basically maybe slightly above average output of whatever they're doing, right?
Yeah.
I think that part of it too is that really we have had an industry that has been obsessed with speed forever and does not care about velocity, right? We care about moving fast, not the direction we're moving fast in. Right. And that has been the case for a couple of decades now, right? That's the whole move fast and break things, is like, let's just go. Like, let's go. Like, we don't need constraints, right? Also the idea that we should be shedding constraints, that constraints are bad, that we should like, oh no, if you have constraints, you're not doing good. We should be doing something different. Or we should be trying to get rid of those constraints. And the problem there is that like constraints are what makes it you able to build good things. Like, you should want to be adding constraints, not removing them. Like, remove useless ones, but add good ones that help steer you in the right direction. And AI is just supercharging all of that, right? Like, we have spent so many years in tech making dumb decision after dumb decision when it comes to basically everything that we do. And now AI has supercharged all of that and left us in a place where I don't really think people understand how to do anything but focus on speed. Like, we are singularly focused on speed at the cost and expense of everything else. And I think that's like a mirror of the larger world. Like, if you look at, you know, you want to understand why companies are the way they are. I think people think, oh, it's just because the people at the top are like so greedy or this or that. And I'm like, the people at the top of most companies, has worked at those companies for years and years and years and years and worked their way up from the bottom, especially the big companies. Like, they care deeply about the company. They care deeply about their employees. But the market tells them, you must care about getting us money as the bottom line. There's this one singular thing, shareholder value, that you must focus on above all else. And for us in tech, that same thing is speed. Like, you must focus on shipping things as fast as possible. That's why we have startup culture. That's why we have all this. Like, speed is what matters more than anything. Do you have direction? That does not matter, right? Like, are you going to be able to get somewhere in the long term? That doesn't matter. It's how fast are you going right now? In the same way that it's like, how much shareholder value are you generating in this instant? Even if that will cannibalize the shareholder value in 10 years, it's what matters right now in this instant. And that causes horrific decisions, right? You see all these layoffs happening. These layoffs are happening because you need to adjust your OpEx, right? You need to make your numbers look good quarter to quarter. You need to do whatever the market will do.
Capital towards their AI spending vision now, or whatever that is.
Yeah, it's like, I need to go take all this money I would have spent on employees and dump it into building AI infrastructure, convert that OpEx into CapEx to make my numbers look better, to make it so I can report that to the market so the market doesn't freaking try and sue me, right? And that singular focus, people, like, that is the root of the problem. And if you're looking at all of this AI stuff that's happening, or all of the outages, all of the downtime, all of that is a consequence of us singularly focusing on speed for years and years and years and years, right? We have not had enough time to focus on security, on good design, on any of that stuff. It's been like, you can do that stuff if you can do it while we're still moving very fast. And now that we got a speed boost, right? We put a turbo in our code generation system, in that, LLMs can build code at 10, 100x humans, and they never tire, right? We did put a code generating machine into our systems. Now we can spew out way more code than we could before. And so now we've gone from having basically a governor on our speed, where you can only go so fast, to like, we remove that. So now you can go as fast as you want. And it turns out that it's really hard to steer something when it's going extremely fast, and we keep crashing into the walls. We keep crashing into the medians. And it's like, that should not be what we're doing. We need to slow down. But that seems unconscionable to us.
Right. And we've normalized even the language that we speak about this stuff with. We've normalized things like, ha ha ha, we're building the plane as we're flying it. Ha 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 ha, we're driving the car without the wheels, and we're putting it on, and we're trying to change the wheels as we drive. And we're adjusting the boat as we undock it, or like, whatever stupid analogy that people use, it like normalizes this sort of behavior. It's like, okay, so you're basically saying that you're not in the measure twice, cut once camp. You're just hacking at that thing. You don't even care. Like, that's basically what you're admitting to yourself. And I'm not speaking in absolutes here, saying like that's always a bad thing. It's perfectly fine to like enter or move before you really understand things. Sometimes that's fine. But we're just doing it all the time, and we're normalizing it to an extent where it's like almost childish. Ha ha ha, yeah, look at my airplane that I'm flying, there's no wings, but we're figuring it out as we go. How about you slow down and think about where you want to go? Imagine if we built infrastructure this way in the past. Imagine if our bridges were built like that. Like, LOL, let's just put it up and see how it functions. Oops, didn't think about you actually driving across it. Sucks to suck that you're at the bottom now. That you died. Oh well. Like, imagine if we approached things like that. We'd be laughed at. It would be unacceptable. People would be suing you, or probably trying to like kill you because you've put things that hurt others. But in software, it's just like, haha, my bad.
I mean, like, there are instances of like, I think the Comaneros bridge comes up, where it's like someone had an idea about how things should work, and it was like not a good idea, and then we saw it happen, and people got horrified, and they're like, okay, we're not going to do that again.
Yeah. But the resonance one, right? That's when it was like,
the one that was like in the like literally like bending it until it ripped itself apart, basically.
But like, that's fine. That is, hey, I thought through this, I missed this, and this was the repercussions of it. Like, we didn't account for the wind going.
We had a bad idea.
Yeah, which is perfectly fine. That's perfect. That's okay to happen. I'm not saying that accidents and things won't happen. Even if you're like the best trained at what you do, right? Even trained chefs make mistakes, right? Train anybody on anything in any sort of profession. make mistakes. And that's okay. I'm just saying that we've normalized kind of flying by the seat of your pants in a way.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like, is anyone even thinking about what you're building anymore? Or are you just like yeeting things into the ether and just hoping that it sticks? And then you link to like your GitHub README with like all the projects you've built with an emoji next to all of them saying like, I've built like, this foobar and whatever. And you don't actually look at any of those things. You just built them and tossed them to the wind,
Yeah. I mean,
great.
I think,
and I've taken a poop every day. Like, so what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man. Oh, it's so frustrating. Sorry, it really is.
I mean, part of it is that, like, again, all of these things are like seated in history. Like, when we think about the mess that is OAuth right now and how many, vulnerabilities are happening, like GitHub, which we can talk about in a second, just had a compromise of their internal directories tied to, I guess this wasn't OAuth. This was like some plugin, VS Code plugin that some person that works at GitHub installed, and like that gave them access. But the Vercel vulnerability, or I guess compromise that happened a few weeks ago, that was because of OAuth. And like years and years and years ago, there was this whole OAuth 1.0a and the OAuth 2, and there was this huge debate because people that were like really thinking about OAuth were like, what is this garbage that is OAuth 2? Yeah, I think too, speaking of unlimited tokens, like the CapEx of big tech right now is getting absurd, right? I think between Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, and Alphabet, they've committed, or they've signaled roughly $725 billion of CapEx spend in 2026, which is like 75% year over year increase, which is focused on, data centers, chips, GPUs, AI models, all of that, which is, we're getting to absurd levels, especially when you consider that these companies are at the same time doing a bunch of layoffs, which I think if you take them out of, like, if you separate these things, it sort of makes sense, because you're like, okay, well, you're doing all this CapEx spending because you're restructuring how your company works. And when you restructure, you usually do a bunch of layoffs as part of that. But when it's these big buckets of numbers, I always wonder, why not just transfer those people? Like, are those people so unfungible that you can't move them to do work elsewhere in your organization? Like, do you not have other work that you need to do? Like, when you announce like 8,000 layoffs or 30,000 roles you're going to cut, or, trying to buy out 125,000 employees, like, that seems to me like you're saying, okay, well, we need to like find a way to get the cash to be able to, build all of this, AI infrastructure, all this stuff. But like, it also seems to me that you're just not, like, I don't know how you can cut that many jobs and do it responsibly and do it well and not have it be long-term damaging to the organization. So it just feels like there's like a missing balance here that's been happening for years now. It's not new, but
I mean, it's all incentives, right? So you have the business itself incentivized to move their spending to something related to AI, right? So they're restructuring their books by way of layoff. So laying off all these people, restructuring that money towards this AI stuff. Fine, totally understand why the board and the business leaders like would think that way, because that's their incentive, because everyone else is doing AI, so like might as well me too.
Right.
But then like internally, the employees are incentivized to work on the AI projects or they'll get fired, right?
Right.
That's basically what it is at this point. So anything that's not AI related is basically dead in the water, right? And granted, I know something like Google has Gmail and YouTube, which are businesses for them, and search, right? Their primary product, search by way of ads, right? Or whatever.
Yeah.
So those will probably continue on, but at a more maintenance level. Like, what new features are going into YouTube or Gmail? You know what I mean? Like, outside of, I'll read your email with AI and summarize it for you.
Right.
Right. That's good. They're basically in maintenance mode. So if you're on those sort of teams, and I'm not specifically saying like the Gmail team or whatever, I don't know the internals of Google, obviously, so I'm only speaking from the outside. But if you're on a team like that, I can see where an incentive comes into place where you're like, you know what? I'm actually going to move to the I team because I don't know how safe I am. I can totally see that. And I don't think that's good for a business long term. What does that mean for
No.
like a YouTube or a Gmail? Like, is it just going to be maintenance mode sort of project? You know, like, is it going to get any funding? Is it going to get any headcount? Are we going to have brain drain where like the good talent that knows the context of those systems is going to move to the AI thing because they're afraid of their job? Like, there's a lot of ramifications here that people aren't even talking about.
I think, too, part of it is when you look at these numbers, like, you know, if you can just get rid of 8,000, 30,000, 120,000 employees, like, my question is always, did you ever need that many people?
Right.
Right? Like, do have any of these companies ever needed to be as big as they are? I think the answer to that is no. I think the answer to that question is like they never needed to be this big. They were always really sloppy in their hiring. They're really sloppy in their management. And we're just continuing to see that slop. I think what these layoffs, these restructurings, these massive shifts in billions of dollars that they keep moving around should tell us that these companies are not prestigious.
I agree. I'm excited for all of this. I actually want to talk more about this stuff. I didn't pick the wrong day to record with you. I scheduled contractors to come in. I have contractors coming in to give me quotes for replacing the insulation in my attic. But I'm leaning towards doing it myself.
So now you're going to make a contract you don't need to. Now we have to cut this conversation short. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. I do want to talk more about this stuff, especially the baby's doing really good too, because she's sleeping, everything's good. But I do have a contractor to go talk to right now.
We got
maybe, I don't know, maybe we'll record a little bit afterwards. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I'm around, so you can maybe do another part 2. I'm all about making more content. I wanna ramp up this content machine.
That might work for me. We'll go from there.
All right. But for now, viewer/listener, how'd you like that episode? I mean, maybe there was a part 2. We just added it in there. I have no idea. We'll find out later. Who knows what the future will hold? But we talked about a lot of stuff. What do you think? How do you feel about what we talked about? Let us know in all the usual places. Changelog Zulip, Gopher Slack, social media, wherever you find your lovely Fall Through host or co-host. Whew. This episode of Fall Through was hosted by Kris Brando with co-host Matthew Sanabria. Fall Through is produced by Kris Brando, and our beats over Breakmaster Cylinder.